on the computer. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Church's Metaphysical Bible Hangout. I'm Reverend Sherri James, Senior Minister for Understanding Principles, which is what UP stands for. Our government name is Understanding Principles Church for Better Living in Los Angeles, California, or in Inglewood, California. And I am so excited to be with you tonight. This is outside of Sunday service. This is probably one of my favorite things to do. I love this experience. And I'm so grateful for I'm deeply grateful for this experience. It is one of the highlights of my week, and I do all that I can for it. Now, what am I going to do? No, that's not what I want to do. Nope. Okay, don't want to do that. All right, I'm figuring out what should be on the screen and what should not be on the screen. Thumbnail video? No, don't do that. Don't do that. Okay. All right. We'll just go with this. All that's on the recording. So let's get going. We are working from Neville Goddard's the Neville Reader, and specifically his book Prayer, The Art of Believing. Prayer, The Art of Believing is one of multiple books in this collection. It's a powerful collection. I strongly suggest adding it to your library. It is the 5th chapter of the book, but it's of the individual book, but it's the 20th chapter of the Neville Reader, and it is the law of thought transmission. The law of thought transmission, and it's if you could see my book, I don't even know if you could see it, but like literally every one page, it's like I underline the whole thing, and it's like, okay, if you do that, Sherri, how are you gonna know what's important? Don't do that, okay? Don't do that, okay? If I underline the whole thing, how will I know what is important and what's not important? Like literally everything is underlined. But here we are. And what I got from this chapter is really we're going to be talking about spiritual grit. How much spiritual grit do you have? That's the question that we are asking for ourselves, about ourselves. And I think it's an important question, and we're going to talk about what that is. So I've got a few announcements. We're going to talk about, have our opening prayer. We're going to talk about how spiritually gritty are you? What does spiritual grit give you? And hopefully we'll begin to shed some light on a quality that I think is necessary in order to really make this spiritual walk. I don't think you can get anywhere in this journey if you don't have some type of spiritual grit. I think it's important that you know your why, and the reason that I make Thursday so important and that I organize everything that I do around Thursday is that I'm really deeply interested in depositing a single idea, which is that you are divine. And I always think back to that moment in Chicago in July 1998 when I first heard the Reverend Dr. Mary Ann Tompkins speaking at the Panorama of Truth. And when I went, I was not. I went to hear Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, and when they told me that Reverend Mary was going to be preaching, I was like, you got to be kidding me. But that her sermon was so powerful. Now, I can't tell you all of what she said, even though I've listened to it over and over and over and over again. But the one thing that she said that has landed with me and stayed with me all these many years later is that my good comes to me because my good comes from me. That everything that is good in my life comes from me, meaning that it comes from the essence of my being, and that if I learn how to access the essence of my being, then I can have as much good as I desire. And that single idea stayed in me, stayed lodged in me, and literally shifted everything in my experience. And so my hope is to do that for you. And the movie that I liken it to is Inception, which is probably my all-time favorite movie. And the movie itself is based on, can you give an idea to someone and deposit it in their minds to such a degree that they accept the idea as their own. And that's what Reverend Mary did for me. She gave me an idea that was what was feeding her spiritually, that has become what feeds me spiritually. So my deepest hope is that I pass that on to you. The Bible Hangout is free, but it does cost to produce this every week. And so if this is blessing you, you can make a gift right at revsherri.com, and a gift of any size is greatly appreciated. And I thank you in advance for your support. And I especially think there are a number of you who do a monthly gift, and I really want to thank you. I've done professional fundraising for like nonprofits, and one of the things that a lot of nonprofits do is that they do, they call them sustainer gifts, but they really make a difference because then you can project. So you're like, okay, I know this is coming, this is coming, this is, I can make these kinds of plans for the work that we're doing in the Bible Hangout and the kind of outreach and extension. And so I just want to thank you for that support. It makes a difference, and to let you know that I appreciate you and I honor the gift that you give me a lot, and thank you. Some of you know this, others don't, but I am available for one-on-one spiritual mentoring. And that is, I have several packages that are available, but essentially I work with you to help you overcome in any particular area of your life. I'm particularly keen to work with spiritual entrepreneurs, meaning that people who want to bring spiritual principles into their business, not necessarily that you have a spiritually oriented or religiously oriented business. It is one of the most satisfying things that I do because these principles work, but you have to work them. And so I literally hold your hand through that process of taking these principles and applying them to what you do in your business. We're on a new platform, and I think I like this new platform. I can't believe I resisted doing it for so long because it came up before when I was talking to some of my blogger friends, but we use Zoom. So if you are watching this on YouTube or Facebook or Vimeo later and you want to attend the live class, you need to be on my mailing list, and you need to go to revsherri.com and sign up on the mailing list, and then that'll get you the links so you'll be able to join us live on Thursday night. Otherwise, the broadcast is uploaded shortly after we finish, and it's available on Friday morning. The scripture for this series is Matthew 9:29. Then he touched their eyes, saying, according to your faith, let it be to you. Then he touched their eyes. That's my prayer. My prayer is that what I'm doing touches your eyes, but not your physical eyes, touches your inner eye, and that you begin to see differently, that this is a faith expanding experience, that through these individual classes, that something that is said, something that is shared, some question that's asked, that it expands your faith and that it expands what you believe is possible for you. I am convinced that God has something special for you to do because you're still alive and you're still breathing. And it is just a sense of urgency on my soul to convince you to surrender to that desire and let God move through you and create the magic that the Spirit wants to do through you. I thank you, God, for this platform. I thank you for the opportunity to teach, to share your word. I thank you for the lives that will be changed through this process. And I just bless this class. And I thank you for doing what I personally cannot do, which is to actually teach the word. That I simply lend my body as a vessel for you to work through. In the name and nature of Jesus the Christ, I affirm that it is so. And so it is. Amen. How spiritually gritty are you? So this chapter talks about the law of thought transmission. And what he says in the beginning of the chapter is that to pray successfully, you must have clearly defined objectives. He says that you must know what you want before you can ask for it. You must know what you want before you can feel that you can have it. And prayer is the feeling of fulfilled desire. And so the babe, you gotta wait. Can you go ask Mike, please? Go ask Mike. Thank you. Go ahead. The process by which you develop clarity, the process by which you figure out what you want, is sitting down and thinking it out. And for many of us, our lives are full from end to end to such a degree that we never have time to sit down and figure it out. We don't have any think time in our lives. And so at every point of the day, we're just rush, 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 rush. We have to build in time. And the thing is that the mind wants to do what the mind wants to do. So it takes time to sit down and say, do I want the car I say I want? Or do I want it because it's the car that everyone else wants? Do I really want a big house, or do I want a big house because socially that's the standard for success? And so this it takes a level of grittiness because the mind is resistant to being probed. It's much more comfortable moving according to learned and habitual thought patterns. And so that process by which you begin to consider something else, that you begin to consider, what do I really want? I don't want to say it's painstaking because it's not difficult, but it takes time to actually hear beyond the din of noise that we all live in. And it takes a level of grittiness to do that work, to persist, to persist when you want to go in a different direction. Got it. All right, Linda, I will see you later. So that's what this is about, and what the law of thought transmission is. So when we're talking about transmitting a thought, we're talking about taking a thought and actually getting it through to the subconscious. Because the way that prayer is created is that I pray a prayer, and that the effectiveness of it is how deeply I feel the reality of what I'm praying for. So when I sit down to pray, like for example, one of the things that I am working with God on is creating and implementing effective systems for a church. So I've got to sit in the feeling of that, and I've got to take the thought, create and implement, effective church system. But there's feeling. What does that feel like that it actually has come about? Is it a sense of relaxation that there's more time to get more things done? I'm able to dedicate more time to my sermons and less time to the running of the business because there's systems. There are systems for actually accomplishing everything. Sitting in that feeling, what will it be like to not come into Sunday still carrying a whole lot of stuff from the week, and really, really working to meditate, to let go of that energy so that I can be available for Sunday. So getting that thought from the head to the heart takes a level of spiritual grittiness, because there is that point where it's just lodged in the head. It's just there because it has not yet dropped to the level of the heart space. And so you need the spiritual grittiness to persist in order to get it from the head to the heart. Does that make sense? And let me know if any of this is not landing, or if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So what is spiritual grit? Spiritual grit is about steadiness of purpose in prayer. It's about steadiness of purpose. It's about the ability to hold an idea long enough until flesh actually gets put on the idea. And you have to persist in developing control over your imagination. So, and you got to know that nobody gets it right the first time. So even now, like one of the things I'm working on, this is borrowed from Michael Phelps. I shared with you guys last week Michael Phelps' story of replaying the videotape in his mind of his race, and him swimming a perfect race, and how the coach taught him that before you go to bed, watch the videotape, and right after you wake up, watch the videotape. I'm like, cool, I got that. Let me do that. Right. So that's good. But let me tell you what happens, right? I wake up and it's almost like before I can catch my mind is already off to like, something else. Or this morning, I got up and I was like, okay, I'm going to see myself. So what I've been working on, because I see myself as a world-class speaker, I've been working on seeing myself speaking in arenas like the Staples Center and being able to generate that kind of energy that would fill up a 17,000 seat arena. Well, I probably got one good image in my mind before I was off thinking about like the things that needed to happen during the day. And it's very easy to just stop and let it go, right? Because it's work. It's really, really work, right? And I realized that like I started out good, and then I come to myself and I realize I've been making a little to-do list for the day. So you got to persist in developing control over your imagination. And spiritual grit is what actually gives you the staying power to keep working on your mind until it surrenders to your instruction. And I think most people quit. But there is a better you on the other side of you with a controlled imagination. There is a more lavish, abundant you on the other side of you with a controlled imagination. There is all the wealth that you desire, all the joy, all the peace, all of what you are asking the Spirit for lies on the other side of you learning to work with and discipline your imagination. And it's worth it. Now, well, anyway, you need spiritual grit, basically. So spiritual grit allows you to modify your beliefs. So there's an entrepreneur that I follow, Tom Bilyeu. He created a company called Impact Theory, and I like his phrase where he says, humans lead with belief. Everything that you see or perceive through your senses gets filtered through your underlying beliefs, or what Neville Goddard calls your subconscious assumptions. So your beliefs are driving experience. Your beliefs are driving your experience. And so to change the world, you got to first change your conception of it. You got to first change what you believe about the world. We don't see the world as it is. We actually see it as we are. One person can walk into a room and see a room full of people who don't like them. It doesn't mean that it's true in any ultimate sense, but they feel it so deeply, and then they begin to act from it. And then there's another person who walks in who thinks that everybody loves them, and maybe nobody in the room cares for them. You to change the world, you got to first change what you believe about it. You got to change your conception. So you have to believe something different in order to see something different. The world says, show it to me and I'll believe, but faith says, I'll believe it, and I promise you I will see it. That it is my belief that brings it into expression. And so you need spiritual grit in order to modify your beliefs. And why do I say that? Because it's hard work. And I don't mean hard work like back-breaking, working on the chain gang, but that process by which you assert your dominion and your authority over your imagination takes time. And most people quit before they ever demonstrate ultimately their ability to control their imagination. And they stop 1 foot from success. But if you persist, I think I used this example last week, but in my Bible study class on Sunday morning. So when I came into the entertainment industry, there were many of us who felt like this excuse that the studios were giving was about why they wouldn't invest a certain amount of money in films with black cast. It was an excuse. And they would say, well, the films don't travel overseas, so basically you have to get all of your money from the domestic market, meaning the U.S. And Hey, Eve. Um, that was the excuse that they used. We believed something different. We talked about something being different, but only the one who believed could be the one to stand up and raise their hand and be the one that the idea could come through. And so Ryan Coogler was the one that the idea could come through. All of us were talking about it. This was, when we would sit with other Black executives and producers and storytellers, it was, the I know for sure I was one of the ones that was like, that's crap. Because the films that travel now didn't always travel. Somebody went over there and developed the audience, so just go develop the audience. So the conversation was there, but the belief was not there until Ryan Coogler came along, and all of a sudden, this movie is going to tap $1 billion inside of 30 days. To change the world, you have to first change your conception of it. You must believe something different in order to see something different. And it's got to be more than just what you talk about. It has to be also what is it's in the core of your being. And it's spiritual grit that enables you to stay the course when your mind resists change. You've got to work with your mind. It is, I think many of us, we may be grown in the body, but we're toddlers in the mind. And I don't mean that we don't have knowledge, but I mean in terms of our ability to discipline the mind and to cause the mind to move in the way that we want and need the mind to move in order to demonstrate the things that we want to be, do, and have. And it's your spiritual grit that enables you to stay the course while you are learning to assert that authority over your own mind. Spiritual grit allows you to awaken desired states. Now, this was something I thought was powerful. I've heard him talk about this before, but essentially, your beliefs, which are your fixed attitudes of mind, constantly modify your consciousness. And I'm reading from in the Neville reader. I'm reading from page 152. They constantly modify your consciousness as it is reflected on the mirror of your mind. Your consciousness, modified by your beliefs, objectifies the conditions of your world. To change your world, you have to first change your conception of it. That's not what I want. Page 153, middle of the page. Subjective words, which are your subconscious assumptions, they awaken what they affirm. So this idea of subjective words are words that come from the heart. That's the gut reaction. You think about the things that happen in your world. What's the gut reaction that you have to it? If you do like I did today, you accidentally pull the light out of the ceiling and you realize you got to call an electrician to get the light put back in the ceiling. What's the gut reaction? Is it the gut reaction, oh, another expense? Or is the gut reaction, okay, let me just get the number and call the electrician? Our beliefs control those subjective words, those words that come from the heart. These are the words that get spoken within us. These are what we would call our true words. These subjective words awaken what they affirm. The words that come from the heart awaken what they affirm. When you see something happen in the news or in the world, or something happens in your own personal life, that gut reaction, though, that's your subjective consciousness. It begins to, it's like it taps the base, right? It taps the, like, what do I really believe, right? It's like, okay, what is my immediate reaction to it? Those words awaken a state of consciousness. So if when you accidentally pull the light out of the ceiling thinking that that's the way to change it, the whole light fixture, and that gut reaction is, oh, how much is this going to cost, right? To like repair this. it awakens a state of consciousness that goes along with, oh, how much is this going to cost to repair this? I hope this is landing. I want this to, so the reason you need spiritual grit is that it's to catch yourself in those gut reactions. Those gut reactions that when you hear about, the 17 students that are killed at Stoneman Douglas High in Florida, that gut reaction, when you hear that, whatever, any information that comes in when you're in, the doctor's office and they're giving you their prognosis or their diagnosis. When you hear that, what's the gut reaction? And so the spiritual grit enables you to hold the word that actually corresponds to your highest desire. Because the words that you speak within yourself, they're living entities. They come to life and they work through you to accomplish their mission. And so, again, I'm using the example because literally that's what happened tonight, is that the light was out and I literally pulled the light fixture out of the wall thinking that I'm changing the light bulb. Don't ask. But if I'm being honest about that gut reaction was, like another thing that I gotta like add to the list of like things to like repair, right? And what I'm saying is that reaction, that energy awakens a state of consciousness. And so sometimes we're keeping things alive in our experience and we don't even realize we're keeping them alive. And we feel like our reaction to the things that happen in our experience is a natural reaction, when in actuality it's simply a habitual reaction. And so in order to create new reactions, in order to create new responses to external stimuli, you got to have some spiritual grit. You got to have the ability to hold to the idea of plenty in the face of seemingly contrary evidence, and hold that idea no matter what. And the only way to do that is to have some spiritual grit. Spiritual grit enables you to face your personal reality. So here's the thing: everybody has something that they're struggling with. There's not, if you're on the planet and you're breathing, everybody has something. Everybody has something that they believe to be more powerful than they are. Even the most enlightened person is enlightened enough to know that they got something that they're struggling with. And so I heard this, I was listening to a sermon from my colleague, Reverend Dr. Derek Wells, and he said, I think he was talking about the power of your subconscious, and he was talking about denials and affirmations, and he said, we have this denial that basically says, poverty, sickness, old age, and death cannot master me, for they are not real. And then he stopped. He said, it did not say that they will not challenge you. It said they cannot master you. But it did not say they will not challenge you. It did not say that you're going to come into this teaching and your body's going to stop aging. It did not say you're going to come into this teaching and you're going to immediately go from, broke to having. It did not say that these things will not challenge whether or not you actually believe them. And so what spiritual grit allows you to do is to actually face your personal reality and not run away from it. Alita says, so they awaken the consciousness or the subconscious. Well, the consciousness is the conscious and the subconscious together. So consciousness is like a blanket term for like your objective mind and your subjective mind, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The subconscious is the part of you that's the seat of intuition, but it's also where all of your memories reside, and it's what we would call the deeper mind. It's the part of you in prayer that you're seeking to impact. That when we talk about the law of thought transmission, that what we're doing is that we're moving thought from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. And The conscious mind learns in a way that's different from the subconscious. The conscious mind and the subconscious mind learn differently. So the conscious mind takes in information objectively. It pulls in information by the senses, by observation, and then it reasons with that data. The subconscious mind only learns through repetition. It only learns through repetition. Once it is given a premise by the conscious mind, meaning it lands, you've actually transmitted the thought from the head to the heart, it accepts it as true. It doesn't question it. It doesn't look at all the evidence to the exclusion of it. It doesn't say, oh, no, that's not what she meant. That's not what he meant. It accepts, once you have successfully implanted an idea in your subconscious mind, it acts on it as if. So I hope that kind of clarifies that for you. But what spiritual grit allows you to do is to actually look at your personal reality, look at the things that you're struggling with, and to actually do something about it. It's very easy to get frustrated and to not feel like persisting, or to throw up your hands and say, you know what, this will never change. This will always. It's kind of like you make peace with what you don't want. And spiritual grit allows you to persist when everything outside of you seems like it's not working out. You're in this spiritual journey, you're going to have setbacks, reversals, letdowns, but you're also going to have triumphs, victories, and overcoming. Both of them can zap your momentum in different ways. The setbacks, reversals, and letdowns, that's obvious. That when you've been building, and something comes and just kind of like swipe your legs from under you, or you have a reversal of fortune, or somebody that you really thought you could count on lets you down. It takes that energy. It just knocks you back for a loop, because you thought I really could count on this person, and now I see I really can't count on this person, and it just it works with you, right? You almost have to like begin again because you lost momentum. But your triumphs and your victories and your overcoming can operate in the same way, because you can be so caught up in the victory and just excited about it, and then the moment that you sober up from all of that excitement and you realize that now it's time to climb the next mountain, you start to remember all you had to do to climb the last mountain. And it's like, it's almost like a little bit of success takes the fight out of you, and so both of those ends of the spectrum can zap your momentum. You need spiritual grit to withdraw your attention from the positive and the negative and still be able to move forward. And that's what spiritual grit enables you to do. Spiritual grit also empowers you to take responsibility. So now this is a hard one. This is really, especially if you've had some type of trauma in your experience, or you've witnessed someone going through some type of trauma. But this is what Neville says. He says, man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. Heaven is your subconsciousness. Not even a sunburn is given from without. It's to realize that because we have this idea that things are happening to us, but in actuality, things are happening through us. And so you've got to have that state of consciousness operating in you in order for something external to you to touch it and activate it inside. Many people live lives so outwardly focused that they remain ignorant of the causal relationship between thought and experience, that they cannot see how something they thought created something that they don't want. And so they believe that There is some exception to the rule. And I want to share with you that there is not. This universe is faithful. The laws are exact, and you can trust them. We only want to trust them for the things that we want, for the good stuff that we want. But they're true in every area of our lives. And so we have dominion and responsibility for the states that are awakened in us. So if you are in a state where everything around you is breaking down, there's something breaking down in the kitchen and then in the bathroom and then that's a state. That's a state of consciousness where everything is just nothing works, right? Everything needs a little repair to it. And you have to realize that you have dominion over that state of consciousness and you have responsibility to do something about it. So the first thing is to put that state of consciousness back to sleep. That's the first thing. But to realize that you're not stuck. That even though this seems to be the case, this does not have to be the case. And that you can awaken a state of consciousness in which everything works for your good. Everything works on your behalf. Spiritual grit enables you to persist in seeing absolute good in your world until you see absolute good in you. So one of the things that I remember most from teacher training when I attended the Johnny Coleman Institute in 1999, year 2000, Carolyn Scribner taught a class, and I can't even tell you what the class was called, but I remember this exercise so vividly. She brought in a cartoon on like a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. I think she passed it out, but she also held it up at the front of the room. And she asked people, maybe it was on overhead projector, and she asked people to say what they saw. And there was no caption. There was a man, I don't remember if he had hair or didn't have hair. His clothes were, nondescript. And he, if I remember correctly, it looked like he was standing on a path that kind of went in two different directions. And she asked everybody to say what they saw. It didn't matter. She was, clear. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. Just say what you see on the board, on the overhead projector. And one by one, people went around the room sharing, and people said things like, "Looks like he's down on his luck." Another person said, he's, he just suffered a real loss, and he doesn't know which way to go, and so, just one by one, people just went through the room. And when we finished, she turned off the projector and she said, "Okay, what you see is what you get." I was like, what? What you see is what you get. It does not have to be true, but what you see is what you get. And so be mindful when you see someone and you begin to label them homeless, or you begin to label them as destitute or troubled or whatever, because the state of mind that allows you to see them has to first be awakened in you in order for you to see them like that. In order to see someone as not having, the consciousness of not having has to be awakened. In order to see someone as incapable and incompetent, that's something we love to throw around. She's just incompetent. He's incompetent. In order to see incompetence, you have to first awaken incompetence in you. It takes spiritual grit to look at seeming lack, seeming limitation, and see the wholeness of Christ expressed. And so, what enables you to do that, especially when you're being bombarded with appearances, right? You know, the first you look up and there's a leak in the sink, then you look up and there's a leak in the toilet, then you look up and one toilet, another toilet won't work, then you look up and the right. It takes spiritual grit to look through all of what seems to be breaking down and see absolute good until you see absolute good. That's why you got to be spiritually gritty, because our lives are full of appearances, and all of those appearances are not great. All of those appearances are not pleasant. I was looking for a euphemistic word there. All of those appearances are not appearances that we would want to see repeated in our experience. And so we want to call them as we are experiencing them. And we have to remember that what I call something, that's what it becomes for me. And so I need the spiritual grit to speak to things that are not as though they were until they are. Spiritual grit precedes living the life of your dreams. Spiritual grit precedes living the life of your dreams. One of my favorite verses, and this interpretation was I first learned from Neville Goddard in Awakened Imagination. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and I will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. From a metaphysical standpoint, this scripture is not referring personally to Jesus. It is referring to the I am of your being. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe in absolute good. Believe also in me. Believe in I am. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I am have told you that I am goes to prepare a place for you? And if I am goes to prepare a place for you, I am will come again and will take you to itself, so that where I am is, you may be there also. The reason that we persist in gaining control over our imagination and intentionally pouring our imagination into desired form is that it prepares a place for us. That I am is nearer to us than our own breathing. That right where we sit, even though I'm sitting in this room, even though I'm having this conscious conversation with you, I can, in the I am of my being, leave this room, go to my office, walk around my office, even though my body still sits here. And I can see the detail of my office, even though I'm physically planted here in my home. The I am of us is nearer to us than our own breath. Now, where we send I am, it goes to prepare a place. And so you begin to think about, where have I habitually sent my imagination? Because where I have habitually sent my imagination, that place is being prepared for me. That place is being prepared for me. I think it's so interesting that the scripture always talks about someone saying, "Here am I, Lord, send me." And we always kind of miss the reverse of that, because the only way for me to say, here I am, Lord, send me, is to send the Lord of my being into the form that I want to go in. And so here I am, send me, and the Lord is saying, no, 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 no. Here I am, send me. Send me to the place that you want me to prepare for you. Because what happens as you send the I am of your being into preferred forms, you lift yourself vibrationally to the level of your dreams. It takes spiritual grit to do this work. It's why most people stay average and lead average, slightly desperate lives. It's much easier to turn on the TV and veg out in front of the TV. It's much easier to keep going in the routines that we're in. It takes spiritual grit to forego the routine and do something different. It takes spiritual grit to resist Candy Crush, or to resist Facebook, or to resist just coming home and passing out, right? It takes spiritual grit. One of the things that I'm working on right now is I have a rock solid morning routine. Now I'm working on my evening routine, because a lot of times when I get ready to go to bed, I just pass out and go to sleep. I don't have like a what I would call a bedtime routine the way that I have a morning routine. But I'm working on being disciplined in this God thing, right? So same way I need a morning routine, I need an evening routine, and and I keep track of it. I have an app. I can tell you what last month's progress was. Admitting where my failures are. So out of 28 days of doing my evening habit stack, I got 19 out of 28 days. A lot of X's and O's. I don't know if you can see the X's and O's. And I can see the nights when it's a problem. Mainly Sunday night. Is that when it was, Sunday night? No, mainly Friday nights and Sunday nights. That's my path. Friday nights and Sunday nights, everything falls apart. Friday at the end of the week, it's like, it's hard to get this evening routine in. And then Sunday nights, because Sunday is such a full day that by the time I get in the house, I'm just, right? It takes spiritual grit to persist until you establish that order. But when you do, you lift yourself vibrationally to the level of your dreams, and it takes spiritual grit in order to do that. Okay. Nisi says, Rev, please say that again. Girl. Let me go back. I hope it unmute yourself. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. Let's talk it out. And Alita says that enemy called average. Yes. Nisi, go ahead and unmute yourself. We can talk it out.
Good evening.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. My question was to repeat again, like the explanation that you gave for the verse.
Sure. So, from a literal historical standpoint, this scripture refers to Jesus personally. But John, whenever the word I appears in the Greek, it refers to the I am, meaning the I am as I am that I am. So when we're reading this verse and we go back to the original Greek, it is Jesus speaking to his disciples, but it is also the I am talking to the spiritual faculty. And the I am is saying to the spiritual faculties, don't worry, believe in God, believe in absolute good, believe that this is a good world that we live in, and believe also in me, believe in the power of I am. In my Father's house, in the home of absolute good, There are many dwelling places. There are many states of consciousness. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, as a title, there you may be also. So the I am goes to prepare a place for us, but we're in charge of where the I am goes and the place that gets prepared. We have a co-creative relationship with God. We're taking direction from God. So when I pray, I ask God, I need clarity around what you want me to do, right? And the Father says, speak, write, whatever. I'm making this up. I was trying to think of something specific, but nothing came to mind immediately. Speak in front of, thousands of people, right? Take this message out. I don't consciously know how to do that, but once I get those instructions, then my job is to turn around and send the I am of my being into the spaces that I've been told that God is taking me to. So it's a co-creative relationship. And wherever you send the I am of your being, it prepares that place for you. And when that place is, God prepares places before he brings people in. So when that place is prepared for you, then you are brought into that state. You're brought into that level of consciousness. And so that work, when you are seeing it, making it real for yourself in your mind, developing a conviction about it, praying about it, sitting with it, meditating on it, what you're doing is you're making yourself a vibrational equivalent for what it is that you're asking God for. Does that answer the question? Okay, great. Spiritual grit enables you to love unconditionally and forgive indiscriminately. So this again goes back to what I learned in Carolyn Scribner's class. Never accept as true of others what you would not want to be true of you. To awaken a state within another, it first must be awaken you. I can't see you as homeless, incapable, lazy, or I can't see you as evil, racist. I can't see that without first awakening that state within me. Just hang on, Jordan. Go ask Mike. Go ask Mike, baby. Go ask Mike. Okay. Go ahead. Sure. Go ask Mike. Okay. Go ahead. I can't see that unless I awaken that in me. I can't see it unless I awaken it in me. I have to wake it up in me in order for it to be in order for me to see it in another person. And so when that truly dawns in you, that the ill will I harbor toward another means that energy, he's not here, okay, you gotta wait then. That energy is awake in you. It's like, oh, no. I freely forgive every offense. I see you, whatever it is that you do that communicates to me that you might want to discriminate against me, I forgive you. I let you go. Because I can't afford it. I don't want it. God is taking me somewhere and I can't get there worrying about you. When it really lands in your heart that what I believe to be true about others opens the door for it to be true about me. No. I'm calling for the life of lavish abundance, joy, happiness, peace. There was a Maston Kipp, who is an entrepreneur that I studied a lot when I was first launching my blog, and he publishes The Daily Love, and I don't know what he's called now, but anyway, Maston Kipp. He said something in a blog post a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks ago now. he said that it's okay for you to be happy, even though other people may be sad. You, you being happy has a greater chance of compelling other people to be happy because our states of consciousness are infectious than you being sad and perpetuating the feeling of sadness. And sometimes we take on the responsibility of other people's states of consciousness. Each person has to do the work to understand that they are responsible for their happiness. Each person has to do the work. You know, I certainly am guilty of this. We want to help our children feel only, happiness and joy or and they get to decide for themselves. You got one life and that's yours. And you can influence, you can support, but at the end of the day, each person has to choose God for themselves. Each person has to choose joy for themselves. Each person has to choose happiness for themselves. And you choosing sadness does not help another person choose happiness. Some people are not happy until you're sad. It's to realize that I am going to forgive and release quickly. I'm not going to place anybody outside of my heart, and I am not going to set up any circumstance where I'm walking around with a grudge against anybody because it's got to be awake in me, and I don't want that awake in me. I don't want any of that lack mentality creating in my experience. And so now it's time to do something. Do you have spiritual grit? That's the question. Do you have spiritual grit? Are you able to persist through the time that it takes to master your own mind? Are you willing to even undertake that? Are you willing to even make that a priority? And then before you move to your next task, after you finish this video, it's just to take 5 minutes and to think about your spiritual grittiness and what you can do to grow it. Where are you challenged? Is your challenge in forgiveness? Is your challenge in loving unconditionally? Is your challenge in just supplying the images that the I am of your being needs in order to create for you? Have you been sending the I am of your being into things that you're worried about? Right? So, because here's the thing with where you send the I am of your being is that when you're not in a guarded moment, when you're not being intentional about your thoughts, your mind, the I am of your being wanders into the playgrounds and the fields that it's accustomed to going to. So sometimes you can, the challenge with worry is that when you're in your unguarded moments and you're not thinking, the I am of your being goes into those worried states, and it's like a low, like a background noise of worry, and you don't even realize you're in it because you're just going about your day, and like I said, it's an unguarded moment. You're not on your spiritual P's and Q's, and so maybe that's an area, or maybe it's in taking responsibility. It's realizing that, listen, if this is happening, this state of mind is awakened in me. And so I'm going to begin to embrace it and do something about it. I'm not going to fight it anymore. But I'm going to stand up and take responsibility for it. So where do you want to concentrate with your spiritual grittiness? And what can you do to grow it? And if this webinar helped you, please subscribe and share with a friend. This is being taped on a Thursday night. If you want to join us live, you can actually sign up at revsherri.com, be on the mailing list, and you'll get the link to join us live. And if not, the video will be posted and available on YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook on Friday mornings. Thank you guys so much. Are there any other questions? Anything else from this conversation? Hi, Andrea. She says, wonderful message. Thank you, Rev. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. So next week we are on, it says chapter 21. I think we have two more chapters, Good Tidings and The Greatest Prayer. So we have two more chapters. So next week it is Good Tidings. Good Tidings. Nisi says, I already know your answer, so I guess prayer is, girl, yes. Yes. You know, the reason I went with the word this idea of spiritual grittiness is because of Angela Duckworth's Grit. And I just finished reading that. And when I read this chapter, it felt like it was all about grit, you know, all about the ability to like get that thought from the head to the heart. And as I was reading Grit, I want to say, hey, Angela, I got an answer. I got an answer. I think prayer will help you develop the grittiness that you need. It's an excellent book. I definitely suggest reading it. But I know they're in the sciences, in the, you know, even the psychological sciences, and you know, you can't. I guess you could, but you can't scientifically, you know, or they don't scientifically study prayer in that way. Um, but I want to say, hey, I got a solution for you. You know, but yes, prayer is the way that you develop that grit. It is. It's praying for the ability to take responsibility, to face your personal reality. God, grant me the courage to face my personal reality. God, help me to take responsibility for this state of mind that's awakened in me. You know, God, I'm having trouble forgiving. Help me forgive. I've been holding on to this for however long I've been holding on to it, and I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want this stuff. I don't want this anger awakened in me. I don't want this hate awakened in me. I don't want this grief or sadness or whatever. Help, you know. So yes, absolutely. Prayer. Any other questions? Thank you guys so much. Thank you for a wonderful night. I will see you in a week, next Thursday. Take care. Good night.